All right, as folks are coming on in, I will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Happy Rendezvous 2023. We're so excited to see everyone this morning. My name is Maria Clark. I am a campus success consultant for Ready Education, specifically with the CampusGroups product. And I'm so excited to be here today with one of the schools that I work with, Denison University. Before we get started, I just have a couple of housekeeping items to go over. First, you are all muted. Towards the end of the session, I will go ahead and unmute you to open up Q&A, but just for presentation's sake, if you have anything, feel free to put it in the chat. I've got some colleagues here and myself will be monitoring that to help navigate any questions. Also, make sure to check out our event hub, which is located in our CampusGroups user community. This will allow you to check the agenda for the day, post things on the event feed. We also encourage you to join us on social media using our hashtag ReadyEdRDV23. And be sure to check out our user community. You can download that app on iOS and Android. So I am so honored to introduce our speaker today, Patrick Fina. As an Associate Director of the Alford Community Leadership and Involvement Center, Patrick works with Denison's campus organizations and large-scale campus traditions and signature Denison events. Before arriving to Denison, Patrick was the Director of Campus Life for the Illinois Institute of Technology. Additionally, he's coordinated LGBTQ+ and social justice programs at Loyola University Chicago. Outside of work, Patrick collects vinyl records, plays tenor saxophone, and dabbles in traditional photography. As you can see in his background there, he's got that 1-hour photo light. So talk to him for all your photo needs there. He does all of this while being the mastermind of Denison's CampusGroups platform, cleverly called What to Do, DU, Denison University. So I'll let Patrick take over and I'll be here to assist.
Thanks so much, Maria. It's always fascinating hearing your little bio read out because I don't think I am that interesting of a person, but I do think that we have an interesting session. So we obviously called this, but I'm not creative, using CampusGroups to generate innovative solutions. And so before we jump into all of the things that we're hoping to share, I also wanted to give some context and background just kind of about Denison and all of those details. So Denison University is located in Granville, Ohio. Depending on how you drive, it's 25 to 35 minutes from Columbus. We are a small liberal arts institution, despite our very prominent chapel and a lot of our marketing. We are not religiously affiliated. We've got about 2,300 undergraduates. We are a pretty selective institution, about a 22% admission rate. And then while we might only have 2,300 undergrads, we do have over 190 registered campus organizations with our office. As of this morning, it was 192. By the end of the semester, we'll probably hit 195. We are fully residential. All of our students live here all 4 years. And then while we do have a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio, my favorite ratio that shows how much our students care about their involvement is a 12 student to 1 campus organization ratio, which is incredibly dynamic and makes for fantastic ways to kind of capitalize on our students' drive for engagement. And it's our job to help make it a reality. So for some context for the overview of the session, I picked some of my favorite phrases that we utilize in higher education. What does the literature say? Benchmarking. What are the current trends? Aspirant and peer institutions, CAS standards. And we're having all of these conversations while we're also compounding all of this stuff by the other softwares that our campuses may absolutely have to utilize, like EMS, Banner, Stripe, Topdesk, Google Suite, Excel, Qualtrics. So I didn't necessarily set out to become a higher education professional. As you can tell by a lot of my hobbies, I wanted to be a creative. And for some reason along the way, I also picked up a science degree. What's interesting is while I don't necessarily create every single day, we always have experiences in student life that might seem really small, but stick with us for for years and kind of inform the way that we look at things. So at my past institution, and kind of where this session name came from, we had an alumni who donated an arcade cabinet to our on-campus hangout space. It was Donkey Kong Jr. The catch was it was free, but we had to fix it. So working with campus orgs, I called the robotics club and I was like, can you please take a look at this, figure out what's going on? So they then start explaining to me about Arduinos and micro soldering and how they're going to do all of this stuff. They managed to fix it. They came, I thanked them, and they're like, hey, we're happy we could do it, especially because, you know, like, we're not really the creative types. And I said, well, what do you mean? And the student president at the time said, but I'm not creative. Being in that student life, student support mindset mode, it like makes you think about things differently, right? So I immediately challenged a student and I was like, this was highly creative. You cobbled together like an 80s tube TV with an Arduino thing, and then this other thing you micro soldered and 3D printed. Like, you are incredibly creative. And so I think about that a lot, especially in the role of higher education. We constantly are looking at really intense quantitative, qualitative research. And I think that at times we kind of have to listen to the advice that we give students, right? The work that we do is inherently creative, even if we don't have that tangible, traditional, tangible artistic result. So this begs the question, like, how do we make it work? I think many of us that work on campuses these days, what we're actually saying when we're problem solving is, how do we make this work and how do we make it work creatively, even if we're not saying that? We're trying to find solutions for our campus's needs, balancing the field's approach, integrating with existing solutions and softwares. The work that we do day in and day out requires a super high creative drive. So rather than existing in a space where, you know, I'm woeful that I didn't make it as a photographer and I didn't make it as, you know, a musician, why aren't we kind of using those skill sets from the passion areas we have and all of those other aspects of our life and applying them differently to what we do daily in our roles? So some additional context, we're going to jump into what Denison looked like when we got here. So this was our engagement in 2020 to 2021. Our initial dashboard that we were using was hosted on our LMS software, and we had a super decentralized engagement support system. There were 13 different ways you could reserve a room, and there were 11 different ways you could spend your campus org budget. We had 150 individual spreadsheets that went over funding, and our activities existed in this LMS, but we were limited and we could only post when groups met weekly. There wasn't a place for students to see what was happening. There was a lot of lacking communication. And our director, Dana Pursley, who I believe is on the call, so hi, Dana, was really supportive. And we both realized we had a monumental opportunity and also a need to really reframe our students' engagement. But we did have a lot of hard barriers. So this next slide is super fun and slightly overwhelming. This was our first version of essentially a campus organization involvement dashboard. It existed as a Google form that existed to multiple other things. We had the LMS system and a how-to guide linked. We had a Google form for an event co-sponsorship application, a Qualtrics form for attendance, no swipe readers, no QR codes, a Google Sheet tractor for active or inactive organizations, an additional Google Sheet for our office roster, individual rosters that half existed in our LMS, half existed in listservs, and then we had an intranet, not internet, intranet page with over 80 Microsoft Excel documents that we were referencing on a regular basis, and endless emails for daily tasks that really could be modernized. There wasn't a single room reservation that didn't require an individual phone call or email. Our procurement system for campus orgs really hinged on students building relationships with a departmental administration in our academic units, or figuring out how to get people to enter things in the staff-only e-procurement system that they couldn't even see. So obviously we have some work to do. And while Dana and I could come up with great solutions, we also recognized how important it was that this be something that the students want and that the students are interested in. So we actually started with kind of like our first super creative solution that we asked the students what they wanted. We partnered with a program called the Red Core Fellows that exists out of our Red Frame lab on campus. They really focus on design thinking, prototyping, entrepreneurship, and essentially serve as student consultants. They actually took the lead on this, and we got to take a back seat, which was incredible. They scheduled multiple platform demonstrations, solicited feedback from current students with multiple focus groups, and they were as bold as to send all of the teams from different platforms highly specific questions that got as specific as what does the EMS integration feature look like when it is embedded in your event request form? They're an incredible group of students, and they presented the recommendations to us on what to move forward with in May of 2021. So this is our first real creative challenge, right? We now have support from the students they have now identified, and now we have to figure out how we're going to get there. So our next slide shows our incredibly compressed timeline. We got the recommendation from students in May. We started working with purchasing in June, and we had a signed contract, and our site was finally live for our initial build out on July 24th. Our students were moving in on August 26th, and we had to have something ready to go. So this is really where we started kind of embracing, let's lean in, let's try things, let's think about this differently and not necessarily pigeonhole ourselves into thinking the same way that we typically do. What's fun is everybody loves the name of our system, but to be quite honest, it really came out of a moment of frustration. We're sitting here trying to figure out, do we do Denison Engage? Do we do an alliteration? What do we do? And with this compressed timeline, we said, we'll just call it what to do because it's literally our name and it's literally what we want them to do. We want them to find what to do. So in a great way, it's really become an awesome marketing tool, but to level with everybody, it was completely unintentional. So really, we started with super low hanging fruit, right? We printed some banners, did a lot of print marketing, and the number one way we got students to download the app and start engaging with it was we wouldn't let them eat at free food trucks unless they downloaded it and we gave them a ticket. What we really focused on in this initial launch period was trying to figure out how do we make it work, right? Going back to that, how do we problem solve creatively? We recognize we're not going to be able to pull real data from Banner immediately. With a compressed timeline, our IT partners did all they could, but we've got to figure out how to make this work. So we said, how fast can you set up an SSO? They said 2 days. Great. So we just loaded a list of students and just hit the ground running. We really made sure that as we did this and we were welcoming students back to campus, we were ensuring that we're saying what this is for them, not just for us. This is a place that we're able to get you organized, yes, but more importantly, this is a platform for our students to be able to access what they wanted and what they needed in order to be successful. So at the end of our first year, what was our impact and what did we learn? We saw a huge increase in so many things. 2020 to 2021, we had about 600 events. 2021 to 2022, we had 3,174, which can be attributed to a lot of things, but a vast majority of this was we didn't necessarily have a clear pathway for success prior to launching what to do. Another fascinating piece of all of this is we saw a 40% increase in actual spend by campus organizations. And while that number seems huge, I originally thought it was closer to 20. We actually pulled the data reports out of our finance system, and that was how much of an increase in spend we saw from 2020 to 2021 into 21 to the 22 cycle. So yes, we're seeing this difference. We're seeing all these great things, but how do we take it further? So I know I might have joked and done a little bit of a self-roast on what we say is higher ed people sometimes, right? Best practices, et cetera, et cetera. But our senior leadership shared this article with us kind of during our first year of the launch of this program. And it was from EAB, and it talked about reimagining the student experience and 6 what-ifs to inspire innovation. So the goals that immediately stood out to us that kind of made us go, wait a second, we can do this, was figuring out how to showcase and let students have unique interests and goals, letting them be able to complete administrative tasks quickly and easily, having connection from the moment that they enrolled and the moment they set foot on campus, giving them direct access to experiences that supplement the goals that they have, and empowering them while they're on campus. So going a step further, because I would not be a good higher ed practitioner if I did not tie this to a strategic plan, right? When we look at our student life division, our 5 goals that we're really working on over the next 5 years is illuminating pathways for students, creating innovation and excellence within our department, building connection and community, empowering students to manage their well-being, and fostering a sense of belonging and inclusion. Of course, our first thought is, how do we do this with our platform? Well, we have the basics built where people are able to see, they can communicate events, they can see what to do. Get it? What else can we do to really become a modern campus? So thinking of that key phrase, modern campus experience. With the systems we use, whether that is structural within hierarchy, whether it's back-end architecture in our IT space, is it required systems, or even personnel, how can we operate within the frameworks we have and implement creative solutions to create what we're talking about in our strategic plan? So kind of a couple things that we immediately did as far as our processes go is thinking about how we staggered our feature releases. So year 1, we really hit the ground running with event and payment requests. That was out the gate, no problem. Over that first year, we started really working with our IT department and doing an in-depth banner integration so that we're really able to utilize tags and have incredible snapshots and really robust data on how our students are doing, what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, and identifying trends. Year 2, the summer, we spent a lot of time thinking about how are we making this to alleviate duplicate systems? How are we getting rid of shadow systems and instead making it streamlined? So we worked with our purchasing department on a Stripe integration, worked with our housing folks on CS Gold and card access, and my personal favorite, our EMS integration. We also partnered strongly with our student government to completely overhaul how they were doing their annual funding requests to show campus organization leaders that this is a platform that isn't just about spending and creating things, it's also where you can gather resources. So I have 2 examples to kind of show how we started to think about leveraging campus groups to modernize some of this. So for a lot of campus groups users, this is a very familiar screen. It's a workflow, right? But my favorite part about this workflow is that this represents 7 different databases within Denison University. And while we can't get rid of a software or get rid of a process that we don't manage, how do we capture them in one place to provide a single service point for students? So this includes EMS, top desk, AV requests, party registration, fundraising approval, catering confirmations, and even one-off additional notifications in one place. It's the magic of binding logic and workflows, right? Something on the back end that might not be super exciting to think about, but we're able to communicate with students and keep them apprised of all of the details for the things that they're trying to create. We're then able to drop in a chat what their work order number is. We're able to connect facilities directly to the student planner. We're able to ensure that, we can download it as a PDF and send it as a one-off if we need to. This was really our first step forward in doing that modern campus experience and making sure that we were letting students access one admin task super easily, super readily, and compiling everything into one space. Our next slide is our second creative push, and probably the one that will always have the warmest spot in my heart. It is the EMS integration. For, I think, every campus I've ever been at, whether you use 25 Live, EMS, everybody sets theirs up differently, and it always requires a little bit of fun on the back end. This is where not only the Denison team, but the Campus Groups team really leaned into even being creative with how we're troubleshooting. We had a large-scale Zoom call. We had Sandbox EMS open, Sandbox Campus Groups open, production desktop EMS open, production web EMS opened, and Campus Groups on the call. What we ended up doing was saying, how do we make this work? Where's the holdup? What's going on? And it was this really energizing experience where it was a group of people coming together to figure out how to make this one idea, one place work. And what are the things that we're missing that maybe our students are encountering in some other ways? So spoiler alert, after a call where we all shared 5 different Zoom screens and 5 different admin dashboards, it turned out that there was a field in EMS that required a phone number, and we hadn't recognized that it was checked. But what this did is it cemented for students that the things that they were passionate about were just as supported and just as important to the university as the things that we were planning. We were providing direct access to them in a way that's actually more streamlined than the way that we utilize it as full-time staff. So while we do have some awesome baselines that, are really about kind of making everything on campus work, as we're entering, I guess, year 2.5, we have been asking ourselves, how can our platform mirror other industry best practices? What do our students do off campus? And this is where we have really started to get creative. Specifically, we really want to increase the validity of the platform. We want to generate additional buy-in. And so what we've got for you is 3 examples of creative options that essentially mirror what students might do in their personal lives off campus. So for any of you, if you've bought concert tickets recently, if you've tried to pre-order exclusive merchandise from a band you really like, you know that right now bundles are all the rage. So some of them are limited run. It's this feeling of really exciting scarcity. I really want to get that t-shirt that they're never going to sell ever again, right? This is something that's really hip and cool for our students. So how are we thinking about the ways that we're organizing similar events on campus? So while I might not be throwing a Coachella, what do we have on campus? And how are we able to kind of recreate this experience and show the best practices that exist in other places within our campus? So a lot of talk came up with our student radio station about Coachella. Love it. Awesome. We can do some things, but I'm not going to start offering car camping on the academic quad. So for our upcoming concert this year, you can see we have introduced bundles on our RSVPs. We're showing that it's not just an on-campus concert, but kind of an experience and something for the community to gather and celebrate around. So it's not Lala, it's not Coachella, but our students respond incredibly well to events that are well-planned, well-marketed, well-managed on the operations side, and kind of show that thought has been put into it and that the support we're providing for them is what we're trying to emulate for an industry best standard, especially if it's something they're interested in seeking, as a career post-graduation. We've seen a ton more interest and a lot more support for these things rather than the typical throw and go, which is an AV term, events that we've done previously, rather than just saying, show up to this concert and we'll check you in. Really mirroring some of the festivals that we're seeing has really increased kind of this drive to our platform and our students being interested in all the details and what we're offering. So next we'll head on to our other example, which is a fun kind of unique Denison one. So as you know, I mentioned we're close to Columbus, but we're not super close. One of the things that we do to help, really support our students engaging with a major metropolitan area is offering subsidized transportation, not just for shopping destinations or things like that, but to also help them with move in and move out. If you're thinking about it, a lot of our students are booking Greyhound buses, they're booking tickets. So up here, we can see what a Greyhound selection looks like or a Southwest Airlines look like. They're given very clear departure times, transparent ticket prices, and alerts on how many seats may or may not be left. So we said, how do we mirror that? How do we make it work? So we really went in and mirrored all of the details on those reservation sites within our platform to make sure we're communicating effectively for travel planning. And we even devised a partnership with our housing staff to make sure that we're running our airport shuttle ticket sales in a way that feels very similar to industries. We have a specific time and date that they go live that is on an evergreen calendar. And what I can say is that it's working incredibly well. We're running over 100 airport trips and over 200 local destination trips in any given academic year. And we're now able to have a clear roster of who is there. We have all of the required off-campus travel waivers from legal. We are able to provide passenger lists to individual drivers. And we're also equipping students with the transparency that they look for within the own travel arrangements they make. One thing we have not done is let them pick individual seats. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to have that ability with 14 passenger buses, but we can try someday. Our next example is a little bit more applicable to the day-to-day ops that we might experience with campus organizations. We all know that Canva has completely changed the landscape in how our students market. Gone are the days of that single computer being in the campus activities office suite that has the single Photoshop license that everybody has to share. Canva has this incredible system where when students are creating their events, they go in, they select a template, it's plug and play. And so if it's this simple for them to create their marketing, how are we supporting and mirroring that within the way that we're helping them create events? So we sat down over the summer and we set up really robust event templates. So we have one that auto attaches service hours. We have one that as soon as you say you're going off campus requires those lovely waivers from legal counsel. We have one to hide the event from anyone who isn't a part of the group. We have one that pulls in the required tags for party registration. We have one that still leaves you a bunch of creativity, though it may be called standard. And then we also have one that auto-populates some of the specific fields that can be tricky with EMS when you're trying to set up a tabling event. This has been a game changer for our campus. It's provided even more of a direct access point rather than having to think, how do I set up a tabling event? Students are able to just immediately access it and cruise through all the questions that we ask. A benefit that we didn't anticipate that has also been incredible is this has helped remove like the dreaded stock image overload on our events page. We now see like a lot more color and a lot more variety. And even if, the social event might show up with that same blue concert background 4 times in a week, it's now broken up and has really made the site far more visually appealing and something that's a lot easier to show incoming students and new students kind of at those tabling events, and shows all of the things that happen on campus and is a great visual representation of what we've got going on. So while we're mirroring the best practices off campus, how can we also embrace being unique, centering the importance of it being a student-first platform, and balancing the administration of our operations while letting students really be themselves? And most importantly, how do we have fun with it? So we have a couple other examples of some things that I think have been really innovative and creative. One of our campus organizations is called The Bullsheet. It is a daily satirical one-sheeter that is printed any day that classes are in session. As you can see here, one of the things here is, what is the staff's Cheesecake Factory item as their middle name? Another one here is a thematic apperception test. It's a lot of avant-garde humor in articles. When we first launched the platform, we were really hoping that we'd see some buy-in on our feed. Our first year, our Lost and Found was super popular, but we were also hoping that our general campus feed would grow. So I went up to the Bullsheet at the annual involvement fair in the fall, and I said, hey, if you post on the feed at least 3 times a week, you're driving people to read your paper, you're driving people to our platform, I will let you take over our site for April Fool's Day. Unfortunately, I had to honor my word. They posted diligently, did not miss more than a day. And so for a few days, we let them have full control over our homepage. So for April Fools, you can see here What to Do became a proud sub-brand involvement hub of the Bullsheet family brands. So what's interesting about this is we saw a significant uptick in unique logins from individual users over that three-day period we left it up. So we will always have some students that are like, way too cool for an involvement platform. I'll never be in a campus org, right? Things like this are still broadening our ability to connect with all of our students on campus and not just kind of pigeonholing us into being a place that campus organization leaders go. Our next slide is about probably the most popular thing on every single campus, which is food, right? So our most popular dining item, and probably the dining item that has the most opinions at Denison, is one of the features in our student union. It's the weekly spice bowl. It rotates out from a mac and cheese base, a poke base, teriyaki and rice base, burrito bowl. Long story short, there's a lot of options. And while there's 7 or 8 of them, there are a lot of feelings about what is being served that week. So we partnered with our Student Government Association and made one of the lowest stakes opportunities you could possibly make. We just made a very simple form with them. It's a direct result. It literally asks 3 questions. Our student government supplemented it with Instagram posts as well as QR codes posted all around our dining facility. And we saw more engagement with this form than we have seen with probably anything else. What's been neat is our dining partners have been awesome in saying, hey, as long as you give us 2-week lead time, if you give us the results by Friday, we'll be able to have everything ordered. And what's fascinating about this is students see that their interaction with the platform, not just for managing a campus organization, but for their day-to-day lives, has direct impact and direct results that positively impacts their experience. I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, but this time, this season really feels like students are reminding us that we might not be as connected to them as we used to be, right? So our student radio station has a ton of nostalgia for bygone eras. They came to me and they were talking about how much they wish that the MySpace music players were still a thing on social media sites. Many of us remember this, remember the days of Top 8 and the inevitable drama. But a lot of us even remember the HTML basics that we thought we knew how to code. Knowing that our radio station has a web portal for streaming, and thankfully for them, I still remember a tiny bit about HTML, we were also able to add something on our homepage that helps drive traffic. With some basic iframes and then some support and some guidance from the Campus Groups team, we were able to take the stream that they have and embed it within the homepage so that students could easily access it. Before, you would have to Google it, go to their website, find the link, then click, listen to the stream here. But what this did is it eliminated about 5 different clicks, 3 different web pages that you had to go through, and students now know that they can immediately listen to this student DJs as soon as they log in on our homepage. We saw on the back end within our radio station, their servers track how many people are actively listening to the radio station. It's IceCast for any of you that might work with that system. As soon as we provided an additional hosting opportunity, we did see their numbers increase as well. So it's one of those things that it's kind of centralizing yet another exciting experience that students can engage with and driving traffic to our platform and making it not just a destination for admin tasks, but a destination for all of the things you might want to do. Our final example is a super fun one and kind of ties back to that Red Core group that helped us select this initial platform. As we're looking at our division strategic plan, one of the things that students are really interested in is how to develop a pathway and how to choose your own experience at Denison. So a group has been working on this and they want to leverage all of the power that we have within Campus Groups to build some of these things out. They approached me, they asked if I could set up a call with Campus Groups, and I said, for sure, what are we talking about? And they said that they want to be able to map their journeys at Denison the same way that they can train Pokemon. They want graphs where people can focus on different aspects. And if they choose that, for example, they're not interested in raising their Pokemon's defense, all they want to do is raise their attack. They want to be able to copy and paste that way of visualizing an experience and plotting it out within our co-curricular software. So of course, we reach out to Campus Groups. We have this exciting call, and funny enough, while Campus Groups might not be talking about Pokemon, they are talking about tracks and checklists. And so for better or for worse, our students now do have Maria's email, and I know that they send her a lot of ideas. And our students were floored, as were we, to see that Campus Groups might not be thinking, Pikachu, but thinking about how to build well-rounded involvement pathways and how to kind of really let students have that unique ownership within their experience. So while I don't necessarily have specific takeaways on these next things, this kind of season that we've been in of really trying to be creative, lean into other industries, and listen to our students and continue to have this be a destination for a lot of reasons. This summer, we're going to be looking at how to set up links to reserve massage chairs and private interview pods within our navigation panel. We're partnering with our residential community colleagues to build out individual residence halls and their kind of student leaders to have a very similar feel to a robust mentorship program. We're working on a really exciting track and checklist for our first year students. And I think what's neat is anytime we're looking and thinking about what's next, we keep going back to our strategic plan: innovation and excellence, illuminating pathways, belonging and inclusion, empowering students to manage their well-being, and building connection and community. And I think this aligns so much with what Gina shared in the opening for today. And also, it can sometimes line up almost perfectly with the Campus Groups features list and the way that we're able to utilize it. So I hope I was able to share some creative ideas and solutions. I promised the Campus Groups team I would stick to the script so that there would be a few minutes for Q&A. And I think I did it.
Thank you, Patrick. Awesome. You shared a lot, had a lot of great ideas. I did just allow folks to unmute themselves. If you have a question or want to brainstorm or talk about anything Patrick mentioned here, how he got it done, please feel free to do so, or you can put something in the chat as well.
Hello, and thank you, Patrick, so much. This was a few minutes of great and wonderful insight. And as you're speaking about a little background, Anne Marie and I work with healthcare practitioners who are becoming professionals with licenses. So we have a deeply regimented program, if you will, to get them to sitting for their license exams. And you were speaking about having students map out their own unique and creative approach and experience while up at college. And as you're saying there, I'm thinking of, oh my God, we have such a lockstep program that they need to have. And now how to be creative and integrate all you're saying in a very structured program. Would that it could be different, but I'm a potential patient, and I want them to have those competencies that come from a very regimented curriculum. Do you see where I'm going with that? And to be creative even in that kind of venue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Leo, just to kind of bounce off that, I know we have a lot of different schools that utilize our tracks and checklists for a very regimented co-curricular experience. A lot of the academic programs that require folks to complete a certain amount of hours of training or events or any sort of information happening in a very regimented way that is more prescriptive than creative. That's absolutely something. And I'll just plug a session that is happening later today with our USC School of Pharmacy. They're talking a lot about that. So I encourage you to attend that event, that session later today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just pull some comments from the chat too, Patrick. Maybe you can touch on some of this. Michelle says, I'm curious about what sort of differences you have for your tabling event requests versus other event templates.
Perfect. I was just going to type a response, but out loud is so much easier. So Michelle, within our EMS instance, our build out within the university forces you to say that the attendance for your table is less than or equal to 2. And so when students are setting up a tabling event, they're hoping that 100 people are going to come by. And what we saw is they were accurately entering that number within the event form, but then it would lock them out from being able to select any of the tables that are managed with the team that does EMS. So what we were able to do, and it was actually like fascinating to see, is the moment that you say this event is set up for tabling, they were no longer changing that attendance number, and it streamlined it immediately to then map within EMS correctly and show them the tables as available options. We did go in and partner with our folks that manage EMS to kind of change all of the names for tabling locations to clearly say table in it, which was you would think we would have done that, but we're always improving, process improvement. And then on the back end, it also automatically applies some event tags for us so that we're kind of able to, if we needed to, go in and pull a list and see, all right, we might have 5 tables in the student union today, but then do we have 3 outside? And then we're really able to work with our setup team within facilities to accurately figure out how many tables need to make it to that quad of campus on any given day.
Awesome.
EMS integration. Elizabeth, we can absolutely talk about it. I love EMS, even at the days that I might want to shake my computer. So I will drop my email in the chat and we can absolutely connect and go over details.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. That would be great.
You got it.
I'm curious, as we have a few minutes left in the presentation, I'm curious if anybody saw any of the creative solutions or things that Patrick mentioned in the presentation and kind of it jogged your memory or want to share something that you're doing creatively with the platform on your campus.
I can mention something new this year is our student activities for like social engagement or social service. They're creating what they call these internships now, using groups, not as groups, but opportunities for service. To use that for registration, actually run their programs through that. They've moved off like a website or somewhere else, but we're moving that into our platform now.
That's awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. Patrick, I see a question in the chat. How did you get so much university-wide buy-in with the site with such a short amount of timeline for rollout?
So to be quite honest, I will give you a very kind answer and then a to myself and the department's horn answer. So the kind answer is we did a really good job of explaining what it is, how it works, and getting, kind of meetings in advance with some of the key stakeholders. What I will say is, while I might be the person that gets kind of like the initial questions about our platform, it could not have happened without all of the other staff in our office, especially our director, Dana, who deserves a huge shout out for all of this. We really sat down and we were able to codify how you do an event on our campus. And unintentionally, one of the unintended side effects is, since we have everything now in one place, people wanted to work with it because it was so much easier than the current process that existed for faculty and staff. So while our students might be like, I don't want to register this on a site, they did immediately recognize, I can just enter a form one time instead of having to have 9 different individual emails. And we really made sure that that was a part of how we were explaining the value of it and why we really were encouraging them to use it. The fun and unintended consequence is we now have some colleagues in other departments that would rather submit their events and do all of their event planning through CampusGroups rather than the identified process for faculty and staff, which we're fine with and we're happy to support it. It just gets tricky when it comes to the work order stage and who's going to pay for the setup and tear down, because it's not the campus org budget.
One thing I'll say too, just to echo off that, is our CampusGroups team also did an on-site training for Denison and its staff. So that was really awesome to kind of go to the campus and answer questions, provide an overview of the platform, and do a really deep dive into what their needs were. So if you're looking to get more buy-in, I encourage you to talk with your CSC to maybe host a training or two on campus. We are always so excited to visit a campus, and I know our implementation team is excited to do that as well. So feel free to bring that up with your CSC as well.